Just 60 kilometers south of the bustle of Chennai lies a narrow strip of land where granite hills meet the ancient sea. This is Mahabalipuram, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most remarkable open-air museums of art in the world. A half day is generally sufficient to explore the main monuments of Mahabalipuram. Entry tickets are available at the major sites, and a single ticket typically grants access to multiple monuments. Visitors are therefore advised to keep their tickets safely until the end of their visit. At the entrance of the hill complex, you are met by a sight that seems to defy the laws of physics. This is Krishna's butterball, a 250-ton granite boulder balanced precariously on a smooth, slippery slope. To the ancient Tamils, it was Varaha, meaning the stone of sky god, that is, a divine object descended from the heavens. However, locally, it's believed to be a giant dollop of butter dropped by the mischievous child god Sri Krishna. It's a true mystery of balance. In the 7th century, the Pallava king Narasimhavarman I reportedly used several methods to move this rock, yet it did not even move an inch. Centuries later, the British governor Arthur Havelock tried again with 7 elephants, and once more the rock remained perfectly still. Whether shaped by erosion or by some secret of gravity, this never-falling stone remains one of Mahabalipuram's most enduring puzzles. A short stroll from Krishna's butterball towards the right side of the hill complex brings us to another remarkable example of Pallava craftsmanship, the Trimurti Cave Temple. This rock-cut shrine is dedicated to the Trimurti, the Hindu trinity representing the cosmic functions of creation, preservation, and destruction. At the entrance, a finely carved image of goddess Durga stands as a powerful guardian. The cave is carved directly into the granite hillside and contains 3 separate sanctuaries, each devoted to one of the 3 principal deities, Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma. At the entrance of each cell stand imposing Dwarpalas, the traditional guard figures who symbolically protect the sacred space within. As you walk along these slopes, the hill comes alive with elephants, peacocks, and monkeys, all carved directly into the stone. Just in front of the cave lies an unusual circular structure carved directly into a massive boulder. Locally known as Gopi's Churn, this large, neatly scooped out rock basin collects rainwater during the monsoon. The name Gopi's Churn evokes the playful stories of Krishna and the Gopikas, the cowherd girls of Vrindavan, who are often depicted churning butter together in large vessels. Moving left from the butterball, we arrive at the Ganesha Ratha, a 28-foot high monolithic chariot carved from a single block of stone. The early records suggest that the temple originally housed a Shivalinga with a statue of Nandi placed opposite the sanctum. Over time, these were reportedly removed or stolen. Later, local devotees installed an idol of Ganesha, and since then the shrine has been known as the Ganesha Ratha. Among all the monolithic rathas found in ancient Mahabalipuram, This is the only one that remains almost complete and continues to function as a living temple where worship still takes place today, although the deity inside is different from the one originally intended. Mahabalipuram was once a thriving international port where merchants and travelers arrived from distant lands. Because of these cultural interactions, some observers believe that elements of different architectural traditions can be noticed here. The lower section of the shrine features pillars that some interpret as having a classical Roman-like appearance. The middle portion reflects typical Indian temple design, while the upper part resembles a dome-like structure similar to early Buddhist stupas. Guarding the entrance are the iconic lime pillars, the royal insignia of the Pallava dynasty, a permanent symbol of the strength and sovereignty of the kings who transformed these hills into a legacy. From the sculpted form of the Ganesha Ratha, our journey continues to the Varaha Cave, where the hill itself becomes the canvas. Carved into the granite heart of the hills lies the Varaha Cave Temple, home to some of the most sophisticated rock-cut art of the Pallava dynasty. Here, the stone doesn't just represent gods, it captures profound human emotions. The centerpiece is the dramatic rescue of the earth by Varaha, the boar avatar of Vishnu. Legend tells us that the demon Hiranyaksha dragged the earth into the cosmic ocean and Vishnu plunged into the depths to restore balance. Look at the masterpiece created. Varaha stands with immense power, his foot subduing the serpent king Adishesha. Yet, there is a striking tenderness in the scene. Bhudevi, the personification of earth, sits gracefully on his raised knee, looking at her savior with relief. In that moment, the divine appears not just as a warrior, but as a compassionate protector. On the adjacent walls, the mood shifts. We see Gajalakshmi, the goddess of prosperity, seated on a lotus, while two majestic elephants perform Abhisheka, pouring sacred water over her head in a ritual of purity and royal blessing. Contrast this with the nearby panel of Durga. In a rare artistic choice, the Pallava sculptors chose to portray her not in the heat of a battle, but in a moment of calm, quiet authority. She stands in triumph, and if you look closely, you'll see a charming, delicate detail, a small stone parrot perched on her hand. This tiny touch softens a warrior's image, connecting the goddess of victory to the nurturing forces of nature. The scale of the narrative reaches its peak with the panel of Trivikrama. This is a giant form of dwarf priest Vamana who asked the ambitious king Bali for just 3 steps of land. The sculpture captures the exact second of his transformation, one foot planted on the earth while the other stretches high onto the heavens, measuring the entire universe in a single stride. Below, the humble King Bali stands witness to a cosmic truth that the universe ultimately belongs to the divine, not to the ego of kings. What makes these 1,300-year-old carvings so remarkable is their sense of life. Every figure seems alive with expressions that feel almost human and stories that remain timeless. In the Varaha cave, the The artists of Mamallapuram transformed cold granite into a living narrative that continues to endure through centuries of wind and salt. As we continue along the path, we arrive at an imposing but incomplete structure known as the Rayar Gopuram. Despite its unfinished state, the gateway immediately captures your attention with its massive granite pillars. Interestingly, this structure dates to the Vijayanagara Empire, nearly 8 centuries after the Pallavas first began their work here. Even in this skeletal form, the Rayar title reminds us that Mahabalipuram remained the site of royal prestige long after the Pallava era. The pillars feature carvings of Dashavatara, the 10 divine incarnations of Lord Vishnu. You will notice some carvings appear damaged. While local lore suggests conflict, the exact reason still remains a mystery. Just nearby lies a rock-cut basin known as Droupati's bath. While there is no historical proof linking it to the epic queen, the design is a marvel of ancient engineering. The basin has a subtle D-shaped layout carefully carved into the bedrock to collect and retain rainwater flowing down the natural granite slopes. It's a perfect example of how Pallava builders worked with the landscape, turning a natural hill into a functional sacred space. And if one were to imagine this truly as Draupadi's bath, it would certainly have been a luxurious one, with a view as breathtaking as the history that surrounds it. Near Draupadi's bath lies the so-called Yudhishtira's throne, a rock-cut seat linked more to legend than to confirmed history. Though its exact purpose remains uncertain, it adds yet another layer of myth and imagination to the landscape of Mamallapuram. Walking behind the Rayar Gopuram, we face one of the most breathtaking monuments in the world. The massive open-air relief known as the Descent of the Ganges or Arjuna's Penance. Stretching 29 meters long, the 7th century masterpiece uses a natural vertical cleft to represent the sacred river flowing from heaven. During the monsoon, rainwater would actually stream down this channel, bringing the stone to life. Look closely at the emaciated figure standing on one leg beside Lord Shiva. His ribs are visible, his body thin from intense austerity. Is this Bhagiratha praying for the river to purify his ancestors? Or is it the hero Arjuna seeking Pashupatastra from Lord Shiva? As we move our eyes across the stone canvas, we see the world of Pallavas unfolding. On the riverbank, a devotee squeezes out his drenched hair after a sacred bath, while nearby a cunning cat sits in fake meditation. In the heavens, Gandharvas glide with the weightless bent knees. In the forest, a monitor lizard stalks a bird, while a lioness tenderly feeds her cub. The more you look at it, the more it reveals itself as a living stone tableau, filled with humans, animals, and celestial beings. Adjoining this relief is the Pandava Mandapa. Though it was never finished, its scale is grand and spacious. The cave is a gift to history. Left unfinished, it reveals the ghosts of the creative process, frozen in stone. We can observe how the sculptures gradually shape the massive viala or lion-based pillars from the living rock. It gives us a rare behind-the-scenes look at the transition from raw granite to refined architecture, a window into the very hands that carved this hill. Finally, we step into the Krishna Mandapam, a shrine that beautifully captures the rhythms of everyday life in ancient pastoral communities. The central panel tells the story of Lord Krishna lifting Govardhan hill with a single finger to shield his people from Indra's storms. The relief is filled with scenes of village life: cattle, cowherd, women carrying pots, and villagers calmly continuing their daily activities under Lord Krishna's protection. If we look closely, the lion sculptures appear slightly different from one another. Some display almost human-like expressions, revealing the imagination and individuality of the Pallava sculptors. From the subtle human-like expressions of the lion sculptures to the sweeping narratives of the reliefs, the Krishna Mandapam stands as a masterclass in Pallava artistry. These carvings capture the individuality and lively imagination of their creators, immortalizing the naturalistic beauty of everyday life in stone. Next, we arrive at the Mahishasura cave, a site that perfectly captures the philosophical heart of the Pallava era. Architecturally, this mandapa is a fascinating bridge between traditions. If you look at the horseshoe-shaped arches on the facade, you will see the influence of ancient Buddhist prayer halls seamlessly blended into early Dravidian rock-cut style. Inside, the central shrine features a serene panel of Somaskanda, Lord Shiva seated with his consort Parvati and their son Kartikeya. Behind them stand several important deities including Brahma, Vishnu and Surya. It's a scene of divine family elegance, yet many visitors notice a curious omission: the absence of Ganesha. What truly defines this cave, however, is a startling contrast between its two massive side panels. On one wall, we witness the high-tension drama of Durga as a slayer of Mahishasura. Mounted on her lion, she charges fearlessly into a chaotic battlefield of clashing warriors and falling demons. It's a masterpiece of movement, symbolizing the fierce destruction of evil. But turn your head to the opposite wall and the mood shifts instantly. Here you find Vishnu reclining on the cosmic serpent Adishesha in a state of eternal repose. Surrounded by personified weapons and gentle attendants, Lord Vishnu represents the silent preservation of the universe. Together, these two carvings illustrate a profound Hindu philosophy. The universe remains in balance through two forces: the dynamic destruction of chaos on one side and the peaceful preservation of order on the other. In this single sacred space, the Shaiva, Vaishnava and Shakta traditions tell a complete story of the cosmos. From the caves, a short climb up the granite slope brings us to a shrine that once served as the eye of the city, the Olakarneshwara temple. Standing at the highest point of the hill, this 8th century structure, attributed to King Narasimhavarman II, is affectionately known as the Old Lighthouse. Long before modern navigation, fires were lit on its roof to guide sailors through the treacherous waters of the Bay of Bengal. Its importance endured for centuries, so much so that the British continued to use it as a guiding beacon into the 19th century. Though the temple is now weathered and its central Shivalingam long lost to history, the exterior walls still whisper stories of the past. On the southern wall, look for Dakshinamurti, the form of Shiva as a silent teacher of wisdom. On the western side, we find the dramatic relief of Ravana attempting to lift Mount Kailash only to be humbled by the weight of Shiva's toe. From this empty sanctum, we look out over the coastline, a view that connects us to the maritime world that once turned this town into a global crossroads. Descending to the sandy plains, we leave the heights behind to enter the Pancha Rathas, the absolute laboratory of Pallava architecture. This UNESCO listed complex features 5 monolithic temples, each carved from a single massive block of pink granite. Construction appears to have stopped suddenly, leaving these monuments unfinished. Walking through this site feels like browsing an architectural sketchbook. At the far end stands Dharmaraja Ratha, associated with Yudhishtira, the tallest and most elaborate of the 5. Its 3-tiered pyramidal form offers one of the earliest complete models of the Dravidian Vimana style that would later define South Indian temples. Next is the Bhimaratha, long and rectangular, breaking away from the typical tower form. Its pillared hall and distinctive barrel-walled roof reflect a spirit of architectural experimentation. The Arjuna Ratha follows a compact, 2-storied structure with finely carved walls depicting gods and mythical scenes. Just behind it stands the ever-watchful Nandi. On the same platform as the Arjuna Ratha is the Droupati Ratha, the smallest of the group. It's shaped like a simple village hut, offering a glimpse into the humble origins of temple architecture. Finally, we have the Nakula Sahadeva Ratha, which is the only one not standing in line with the others. It sits right next to a massive, incredibly lifelike stone elephant. In a clever bit of architectural mimicry, the shape of the temple's back perfectly matches the rear of the elephant. These are not just buildings, they are permanent textbooks, where ancient masters experimented with every style that would go on to define Indian architecture for the next 1,000 years. Continuing from the experimental Pancha Rathas, we arrive at the crown jewel of the Mamallapuram, the shore temple. If the Rathas were a rehearsal, this is the final masterpiece. Built in the 8th century by Narasimhavarman II, it stands firmly on the edge of the Bay of Bengal, one of the oldest structural stone temples in South India. Marco Polo once described this coastline as the land of 7 pagodas. It is believed to be the lone survivor of a once grand coastal complex, with the others lost to the sea. Evidence of these submerged ruins briefly emerged during 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, when the receding waters revealed traces hidden for centuries. Anchored on solid bedrock, the temple has withstood the ocean's fury for over 1,300 years. The temple comprises 2 main shrines dedicated to Shiva and a smaller one dedicated to Vishnu, their pyramidal towers weathered gracefully by the salt air. As you walk through the complex, the atmosphere feels timeless, with the rhythmic sound of waves crashing just beyond the walls. While the inner sanctums are now closed to preserve their sanctity, the exterior remains a masterclass in Pallava art. The Garbhagriha, like the other shrines in the complex, features a Somaskanda panel on its rear wall. A socket for the linga can still be seen in front of it, though the linga itself is now missing. Within the compound stands a remarkable monolithic lion, partly carved and partly sculpted, with a curious hollow in its torso. On its back is a miniature image of Durga as Mahishasuramardini, while its open mouth hints at its role as a goddess's mount. Surrounding the shrines is a rectangular compound wall guarded by rows of seated Nandi bulls, the sacred vehicle of Lord Shiva. Along with guardian lions, they create a sense of enduring protection, while the walls form a gallery of intricate carvings depicting deities, mythical scenes, and floral motifs. The Pallava kings didn't just build monuments, they pioneered a legacy. They transformed boulders into divine chariots and anchored the beacon to the bedrock that has outlasted empires. Mahabalipuram stands as a timeless testament to human ambition and the enduring power of art.